meeting of the Waco City Council on September 21st, 2021 to order at 3:06 p.m. I apologize for the delay. All council members are present except for Councilmember Sabito. Will you please join me for a moment of silence? Thank you. We would provide an opportunity for the public to address the City Council on any agenda item or during the hearing of visitors portion of the agenda. On items other than the public hearings, speakers will be allotted one 3-minute presentation regardless of the number of agenda items the speaker wishes to address. If you are here to speak and have not filled out a registration card, please see the City Secretary staff at the registration table outside of the auditorium to provide registration information so that staff can contact you if necessary. If you have handouts, please let us know at the beginning of your presentation and staff will distribute those to council. If you're unable to approach the podium due to physical limitations, a microphone is available to be brought to you. Is there anyone present who would like to speak on any work session agenda item? If not, we will move on to a report from our City Manager, Bradley Ford.
Thanks, Mayor and Council. Good afternoon. I wanted to highlight a couple of changes to the agenda today. Staff is delaying discussion on informal report 632 regarding holiday events. I personally like to take a couple more weeks to monitor the COVID numbers before discussing a path forward on our holiday events. And then our second change to the agenda, we're delaying resolution 663 related to health equity, diversity and inclusion training while we work through a couple of remaining contractual issues. I do expect we'll be able to resolve these and be back at a future agenda soon. And then finally, an update, we have updated resolution 647, and the only changes reflect the current COVID statistics in our community. Like last meeting, this agenda is one of the largest of the year. I think we beat the total page count by 20. Nice. This was packed full of quality work by the city staff, as well as a number of our outside agencies. So it's quite an agenda. Today, I would like to highlight one employee recognition item and introduce you to a new city employee that started over the last few days, and that's Jody Cash, our new Assistant Director of Finance. Jody, if you'll stand. Jody recently came to work at the city again as Assistant Director of Finance, working with Janice and Rusty. He left a name that might be familiar to the council, Big Creek Construction, where he served as controller for almost 5 years, and to take on the role here at the city. He brings more than 20 years of experience as a CPA in various roles of public accounting in both for-profit and nonprofit. He lives in Waco, and since the time he spent at Baylor University, actually, minus just a few years he spent in Dallas and Haiti. And while he's in Haiti, I believe he spent a couple years doing community development work. So impressive resume, and just wanted to give a chance for the council to welcome Jody to the team.
Welcome, Jody. We're so glad you're here. I know you're going to add a lot of value, and excited to have you on board.
All right, on the agenda today, Mayor, we have 2 informal reports. Again, I'm not ready to discuss 632, but I did want to highlight 631, which is an update for the council related to tax increment financing, including an update on our efforts to create TIF number 4 to support core city development. That's an effort that's been ongoing by the staff and will be certainly an ongoing effort throughout 2021 to get the TIF number 4 created. So excited about that work.
Oh, this is Holmes. Just comment a bit on that. I like the idea of getting this established. I know we're targeting on page 16. There's a lot of core as you put them into 2 categories: commercial corridors and strategic properties. And I think these merit consideration as we are doing for additional public development to actually attract private investment to ultimately get better economic development in all of these areas. So I support the concept of getting another TIF going here. Just a couple of observations I had. If we could, before it becomes an informal report turning into a, I guess, it'll go through a public hearing process, or when will we see this again in a more baked stage?
I think we plan to have a work session for you, a little deeper dive, certainly.
Great.
And then we have a lot of conversations that need to happen with other taxing entities in Waco as well.
So if we could, the map, I know it's just a preliminary map, but if we could get a little more definition there, because in some cases the map wasn't following, the map on page 19 wasn't following the objectives on page 16. At least I couldn't tell. There's not enough definition there. And then the other thing I'd like to see is maybe a trailing 3 to 5 years history on what is the tax base doing in this proposed area. Is it static? I mean, if it's static, that to me is a great reason why we need to attract development in these areas. That would just help us define what that zone should look like. But I appreciate getting it this far.
Good.
Look forward to seeing it again.
Good points.
Bradley, thank you so much for presenting this to us. This is so exciting, seeing so many of these core areas of the town, of our city, specifically in District 4. We have 25th and 26th Street corridor, Colcord Avenue, Franklin Avenue, former Hillcrest Hospital. I am so excited about the possibilities that this allows for us to really strategically invest in the core of this city, to see some of these streets become reinvigorated with energy and beautification, and attract new businesses, both local businesses and maybe businesses outside like Holmes spoke to. So thank you for all the work that you and staff have done to move this across the board. I'm really excited to see this come to fruition in the next couple of months.
Thanks.
City Manager Floyd, thank you for the information on this. I'm super excited about it. There are a lot of things that need to be activated and reactivated in spaces. Help me understand, in the redevelopment of multiple commercial corridors, we got a bit vague in the statement that says something about something in East Waco. What does that mean?
Well, I think it was, frankly, a misstep in the agenda process.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not targeted at anything particular.
And so, since we have the floor, allow me to offer up some suggestions, perhaps enhancing the commercial corridors that make up the eastern part of Waco Drive, Clifton Street, Hillsborough Drive, Business 77. I mean, you know, we got a list or two. So if you'll allow me to add those things in the thought. And I figured it was when we start writing things and it's a placeholder, and it was like, oh, but you know, since we're addressing and putting out suggestions, there's some.
Yep. I just thank you, staff, for getting it to this point. This is a long time coming. We've been really discussing how to activate these spaces through a proposed new TIF zone. The 5 of us are very committed to proactivity and strategy in preserving the core of our city. And I think we have a moment in our community right now as there's a lot of interest in our community to secure the tax base. And I think, Holmes, your question on whether the tax base is static or not is good, but I think also just driving through some of these corridors, you can see that it's going to take some intentionality. It's going to take some incentive for there to be a redevelopment in the moment that we have right now, to ensure that our tax base is secure for generations to come. So I think that this is a proactive and strategic move to secure our tax base, and thus I think it's really fiscally wise of us to be taking this step. So thank you to staff for getting us to this point. I have some questions about the map too, but I know that we can process that as we go, and look forward to having those discussions.
Thanks, Mayor and Council. Public hearing wise, we've got a full slate today with 10 public hearings. The first public hearing approves and adopts updated service and assessment plan for the Waco Tourism Public Improvement District for next year. And the remaining 9 public hearings are planning related items that Clint Peters will cover later in the work session here just in a few minutes, actually. Resolutions today, we have a big bunch of them, 48 total, which is why you see so many folks in the audience. And I'm just going to highlight one. It means basically I couldn't pick very many favorites today. There's so many good items. But the one I wanted to highlight represents several years' worth of work, and that's Resolution 2021-685, which awards a contract to Big Creek Construction for the Mars Drive and Old Hewitt Road improvements for a total authorization not to exceed $9,016,992. This project, as the council is well aware, has been in the works since December 2017, when you authorized design work on this project. Approval of the resolution will move us forward to construction on what will be, I believe, the largest street reconstruction project we'll see in this year, along with drainage improvements and some pedestrian improvements in the area. This project certainly is going to benefit our street network and as well as enhance our economic development efforts in the industrial park, bring in much needed improvements. We anticipate construction will start in the fall of this year.
City Manager Ford, I wanted to speak on this, and I truly appreciate the City Management's office prioritizing this over successive administrations and you kind of bringing this home here. I think that, one thing I've heard from out in West Waco as Midway High School sits in District 3, there in the industrial sector, is the desire for upgraded roads out there, especially Mars and Old Hewitt, but also the public safety issues that we've got with pedestrian traffic, bicycle traffic, and just vehicular traffic out there as well. So I think this will go a long way to making that a safer area, to promoting commerce in the area and industry, and also helping with our relationships with Hewitt and Woodway and the Midway school system, helping further solidify those. So thank you for this good work. It's a needed project and one that I think will be most welcome when complete. Thank you.
As Councilmember Border had said, this is important for our community for multiple reasons and an important step from an economic development perspective, among others. So thanks for your work on this.
Thanks. Ordinances, we have 5 on the agenda today. One is a first reading, the rest are second readings. That first reading is Ordinance 695, which revises Article 6 Sanitary Sewer Use Regulations of the Utilities Chapter to ensure compliance with TCEQ standards and requirements. And if there's no questions or comments, that concludes my report.
Any questions for Bradley?
And Mayor and Council. Council members Border and Palmer have filed affidavits of substantial interest for work session 2021-634 and resolution 2021-690. Resolution 690 will be pulled from the agenda and will need to be voted on separately.
Very good. So, let me find my spot here. Are there any other items that council would like to remove from the consent agenda?
Can I check real quick on Resolution 660? I had written down that I needed to do an affidavit on that one as well. Is that correct? The PID?
I didn't hear your question.
Oh, I apologize. On Resolution 2021-660, it's a PID. Do I need an affidavit on that one as well? I wasn't sure if I had signed one.
Yes, sir. Both you and Councilmember Palmer are also conflicted on 660 and ordinance number 698.
So that is resolutions 663, 690, and 660 that will be pulled from the consent agenda. Is that correct?
That is correct. And it looks like 660 and 690 will be voted on separately, and 663 is pulled completely from the agenda.
Okay, got it. Sorry.
And I'll get those forms for you to fill out.
Great. Are there any other items to be pulled from the consent agenda? If not, at this time, we will move to our work session part of the presentation, and Bradley Ford will introduce those.
Sure. We're joined by Clint Peters, our Director of Development Services, for the first work session, and he'll be discussing the planning public hearing items.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. We do have 9 planning public hearings tonight. The first one being a 638, which is a subdivision plat. This is the final plat and construction plans for the Bodie Road addition, Phase 1. This is a ETJ plat out the northeast side of Waco, east of Elmont, which is off of I-35 here, and it's off Bodie Road, east of Elmont. Proposed 12 lots, ranging in size from 2 to 3.5 acres. This subdivision is located in in Waco's water service area, but our nearest water line is a little over 2 miles away from that. So they are proposing to be served by Leroy Tours Gerald Water Supply Company, which has facilities in the area and can serve the property. And council actually approved a agreement with LTG to serve that property. So it will be served by that water supply company. All other plating requirements have been met, and the Plan Commission recommended approval of the plat and construction plans by a vote of 10-0. The next public hearing, 639, is a short-term rental type 1 at 2925 Park Lake Drive. This is a single-family home in our Cedar Ridge neighborhood in Council District 5. Again, short-term rental type 1s are now the only type of short-term rentals that are allowed in single-family zoning. Type 1 means it is owner-occupied property, and the owner is on site when the guests are there. This property is at the corner of Park Lake and 30th Street. It is a 3-bedroom home. It's 2-story with 2 bedrooms being upstairs, and the owner proposes to rent out those 2 bedrooms for short-term rental. We had 23 notices mailed on this one and 0 opposed. You can see it's got a circular drive with adequate parking for the parking requirements for short-term rental. And then here's a picture of the home. And Plan Commission did recommend this by a vote of 10-0. The next public hearing, 640, is another short-term rental type 1. This is at 620 Bosque Lane. This is out an acre property out on the Highway 84 corridor. Bosque Lane connects Highway 84 to the Hidden Valley subdivision, right across from the McGregor Airport. This is a unique property. There's actually 2 single-family homes on one lot. This property was actually developed in the late 80s before it was annexed into the city, and so that's why there's 2 homes. Typically, on a single-family lot that develops within the city limits, you can only have 1 single-family home per lot, but because it developed before it was annexed, it has 2 single-family homes. The owner does live in one of the homes and is proposing to rent out the home on the left here, which is a 2-bedroom home for short-term rental. It has been used for a long-term rental to this point. And you can see here, this is the house on the left, which they're proposing to rent out for short-term rental. And then right next door is the owner's home that lives there. So it does qualify for a short-term rental type 1. We did mail out 14 notices on this one, and we did have 1 received in opposition. Plan Commission did recommend approval of this one, 10-0. The next request, 641, is a request for a RV park and an outdoor recreational amusement facility on 46 acres at east of, on J.J. Flowen, just east of, north of Herring Avenue. The applicant has requested a withdrawal of this application. This property was under contract, and the buyer, it was the applicant, and after the Plan Commission hearing, which the Plan Commission did recommend disapproval, the buyer terminated the contract and then requested the withdrawal for consideration. What that means under our ordinance, when the applicant requests a withdrawal, is the council does have to have a hearing on the request to withdraw and then take action on that withdrawal. If council approves the withdrawal, then the applicant cannot come back for 6 months. If the council wants to deny the withdrawal and then move forward with the case, we would just move forward with the hearing on the request for the RV park. If the request is denied, then it's a 12-month period where the applicant cannot come back. Because this has been, the buyer has terminated the contract, staff does support the request for withdrawal.
Thank you for that clarity, Clint. One of the things that came to me is that if, I was watching Plan Commission that evening, and the community had a very clear unifying voice of their opinion of this. And I think what would happen, should we accept a withdrawal today, is that they would have to potentially could have to do this again in 6 months. And another 6 months, whatever. And I think that they have made their point clear, and I think that, I know I, as a district representative, have heard that loud and clear and absolutely agree with them. So, I know today, knowing that we have the ability to deny the withdrawal, that will be my choice tonight, because I don't think that we need to be able to or think we might have to deal with this again in 6 months.
Like, could you speak to some of the details that Councilman Bearfield just alluded to of what's the strength of us approving a withdrawal versus denying something outright, and what's the timelines associated with that?
It basically comes down to a 6 months,
6 months or a
window.
year.
So with the withdrawal, couldn't come back for 6 months. With a straight out denial, it would be 12 months.
And just as a reminder, even the withdrawal involves a public hearing, and so I'm sure y'all will wait till the public hearing to make a decision on either.
So it would end up being 2 public hearings. You'd have the public hearing on
The
request to withdraw, and
Then
then
have the
if
public
that's denied, then we'll go forward with the request.
Thank you.
This is Holmes, Clint. I'll echo Councilmember Bearfield's observations that in the Plan Commission hearing, it was pretty evident and very eloquently spoken by several members of the community that this didn't quite fit in an R1B area, this concept. So I think, and I don't think anybody needs to be punished here, but to me, I don't want it to bring that group of 12 or 15 people who very well represented that position back in 12 months or, 3 more times. I'm pretty sure they'd be saying the same thing. Yeah. So, again, Jennifer, I'm sorry. I think we need to all consider the withdrawal versus, the timeline of the withdrawal versus disapproval.
Yeah.
And also in light of the fact that Plan Commission disapproved it as well.
Right, so because the Plan Commission recommended disapproval, it would require a supermajority to approve the request. Just wanted to put that out there, which would be 5 out of the 6. The next case, 642, is a similar situation. The applicant has requested, after the Plan Commission hearing, has requested a withdrawal, and so a very similar situation. The applicant had the property under contract. Plan Commission recommended disapproval on this one as well, and they have terminated their contract, so and requested the withdrawal of this one as well. And the staff does support that withdrawal. At 643 is a request to rezone from O2 to O3 on property located at 3301 Robinson Drive. This is a little strip center along Robinson Drive in the Alta Vista neighborhood in Council District 2. You can see it there on the map, just north of the city limit line between Robinson and Waco, and you got Garden Drive here that connects into Robinson Drive, Highway 77. It is quite a bit of a commercial corridor. There's some multifamily mixed in there. See the land use plan, which is a medium density office flex. And then the zoning is a mix of zoning office, commercial zoning through that corridor. So here's the property. It is just a little, I think about a 2,500 square foot building. It has historically been used for office uses. There had been what was kind of what brought this forward was there had been a smoke shop operating in there illegally in the O2 zoning that our code compliance department had written up. For zoning violations, they have stopped that use, and the owner didn't even realize that there couldn't be commercial uses in there, so is requesting a zone change to O3 that would allow some limited commercial uses, would not allow the smoke shop. So the smoke shop is closed and moved out of there, but the O3 would allow some, like I said, limited commercial uses that can only operate between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. General retail, some restaurant, personal service uses that the owner would like to have the opportunity to rent that space out for. And you can see that this is looking down 77. You can see there's a mix of commercial and multifamily through that corridor. We did not get any notices back on this one, and Plan Commission did recommend it by a vote of 10-0. The next case, 644, is property located at 1018 and 1020 on Lasalle Avenue. It's a rezoning from C5 and O2 to C2 on approximately 0.63 acre tract of land in the Oakwood Neighborhood Association in Council District 1. You can see the property here. It is a vacant property currently. The front portion of it is C5, which is a heavy commercial zoning, and the back portion is O2. This is in the LaSalle Avenue corridor overlay, and then the area of the LaSalle Avenue plan that you'll hear more about in the upcoming work session. And the C2 zoning, proposed C2 zoning is in line with that plan, and any development there would have to be in compliance with the overlay requirements. But C2 is a mixed-use district that allows commercial uses, multifamily. And here's the property here. In Plan Commission, we had 53 notices on this and just had one return in favor, and Plan Commission recommended approval of the request. The next public hearing, 645, is the third request that we have a request to withdraw. This was a rezone from O2 to C2 in the 600 block of South 10th Street. This one is a little bit different. The applicant actually is the property owner, and after discussions with the applicant, they have decided just to move forward with a development that fits in the current O2 zoning, so they're requesting to withdraw this one. So very similar procedural process as the other two. And then our last public hearing is at the 3509 Charlton Avenue. This is to rezone from R1B to R2. This is a single-family property in our Kendrick Neighborhood Association in District 2. This is just off Valley Mills Drive in a residential area, single-family residential area. You can see Beverly Hills city limits there, just to the north. R1B zoning. There is some R2 zoning kind of sprinkled through that area. I look back, and all that R2 zoning was previous to 1970, so it's been there a lot. But when you drive through this neighborhood, it is predominantly all single-family uses. And so, especially on that block, it's all single-family zoning and all single-family homes there. And then this is the property here that's single-family. So the main difference between the current R1B zoning and the proposed R2 zoning is R1B zoning allows single-family, where R2 zoning would allow single-family duplex. It also allows short-term rentals. Because the rest of the block is R1B zoning, and just a property there right in the middle of the block, staff and Plan Commission both recommended disapproval of this request. Because of that recommendation, it would require a supermajority vote to approve this request, which is 5 out of the 6 council members. And that's all we have today.
Thanks, Clint.
All right, Mayor and Council, our next work session is work session 634, and I'll invite the team from LaSalle Avenue Strategic Plan up to the table. Today we have Chris McGowan with CMC Strategic, who'll be leading, I believe, most of this discussion, but he's joined by two gentlemen at the table who may not need an introduction, but I'll provide it anyway. And that's Alfred Solano, who serves as the president of the Syntex Hispanic Chamber, as well as Mark Arias, who represents the Lasalle Avenue Steering Committee. As a reminder, the council did provide funding for this initiative last year in the amount of $47,000, I believe, to the Hispanic Chamber, and then they partnered or contracted with Chris and his team at CMC to develop the strategic plan. And I'm excited for the council to hear about that work. Chris, take it away.
Thanks, Bradley. Mayor, council, I hope you'll allow me to take off this camouflage mask so you can see me.
Put it back on, Chris.
Thank you. As Bradley said, this has been actually a very long ongoing effort comprising several years that started with a conversation that developed the overlay zone along LaSalle. If you'll recall, I think that came to Planning Commission a couple of times, and there was some some disagreements about how that was originally organized. Eventually, the good folks of the LaSalle Avenue corridor, property owners and business owners, came together to agree to what ended up being the overlay zone. The next step after that in the redevelopment of the LaSalle corridor, Alfred Solano had the wisdom to say, we need to take a good long look at this and develop a strategic economic development plan. Pulled together a steering committee with Mark and several other property owners along the corridor, and I'm grateful to have been a part of it. It was a really fun project. Took a lot of time with COVID, about a year longer than we expected. But all in all, through a series of steering committee meetings, public forums, and one-on-one kind of stakeholder interviews, we developed this strategic plan that we think sets a really great foundation for the future of LaSalle. This first image that you're seeing is what the committee and my team came up with as sort of a brand for the LaSalle corridor. After a lot of conversation and thought, we thought that kind of this simple brand really reflected a lot of the different things that you're going to see in this strategy today. So we started our discussion thinking about the corridor itself, and man, that's a long stretch of road to start to think strategically about. So we really wanted to take it into chunks, and what we did, just for strategic purposes, not really for marketing or branding or anything, identified these 3 different districts that we're calling districts within the corridor. The Circle District, obviously, up by the Circle. The Central District, very creatively named, in the middle. And the University District, I think, speaks for itself, up to University Parks. The first thing that we set about doing was developing goals, strategy goals for this process. They were built upon the foundation of the Imagine Waco plan that was put together, man, a long time ago, but still carries a lot of water, I think. And one of the things that the Imagine Waco plan called for, it focused a lot of its strategic investment in the we'll say the hard core, the urban core of the greater Waco area, greater downtown Waco area. But it also said there's a lot of planning that needs to be done in and around this area, because if we're successful downtown, all of the neighborhoods surrounding it will thrive. And that was really one of the sort of foundational elements about building this strategy, was taking the next step on that Imagine Waco plan process. So the strategy goals that were identified are building community, activating corridor districts, identifying quality projects that advance the vision, and creating value. These are just standard economic development strategies, right? I will say number 3, quality projects that advance the vision. We took a little bit of a different approach and developed some concepts and some visualizations for these concepts, where we took some properties along the LaSalle corridor and sort of played what if. So what you'll see are some really cool visualizations. They are not in any way real projects, but they're more of a conversation piece to set the tone for what we think the future of the LaSalle corridor can be. I'll start off with improvement recommendations, and then I'll get into implementation strategies. These improvement recommendations are divided into a few different subcategories, and these are things that we think the team and the steering committee can bear fruit in continuing to build momentum along the corridor. And these are not anything that anybody in particular owns, although you know, there are some pretty easy stretches that can be made with some of these, but we think these are important. Number one, we think a corridor study of the entire Lasalle corridor at some point is very important. And let me back that up, not necessarily the entire corridor to start. We think safety and access management is a very big issue along Lasalle. It's a very wide corridor that has a lot of cars moving very fast, and particularly at the university, on the university side of the corridor, you've got, you know, Baylor on one side and then a lot of student-oriented housing on the other. And so understanding how those two interact and how you can manage the access, not just in cars, but with people getting around in all modalities, is something that's really important to, you know, if you don't have a safe place, no one's going to go there. We think that creating gathering places is a great place to start for building momentum along the corridor. That is, identifying and developing places where people can come together safely, outdoors. They can be permanent, they can be pop-up. So that's one thing that we focused on, and you'll see that in one of our concept drawings here in a minute. Identity. We need people talking about LaSalle in this community, what it is, what it was, what it will be. And so a lot of the visuals in here are sort of oriented towards building a brand, you know, into the corridor so that people can start to think about, you know, LaSalle is a place that's up and coming and a place that we want to go check out. And then maintenance and flexibility, of course. All plans and strategies are fluid documents and initiatives, and we think it's important that as a Hispanic chamber and other economic development organizations continue to work to grow our city, it's important that they maintain that flexibility, working with the city to make sure that the corridor is safe and relevant, is safe and clean, and of course relevant to this vision, any decisions that are made going forward. The next set of recommendations involve placemaking. Programming is everything. You know, driving people into an area is, in my opinion, the most important thing you can do for economic development. When I first moved to Waco, 14, 15 years ago, and started work on growing downtown, you know, placemaking and people was a high priority for all of the community, and myself in particular, as I walked along Austin Avenue to get to know all the business owners there, as I was the new guy. And there were three businesses at the time on Austin Avenue. So driving people into a neighborhood is very important. That can be done through events, that can be done through facilities and venues, that can be done through bringing new business in, and again, creating safe, accessible places. Image is everything, so it's probably in all of these recommendations, but building and looking towards amenities, placemaking amenities that reinforce that brand. So as corridor improvements are considered, and understand corridor improvements are not necessarily an easy thing to accomplish on a state corridor. You know, it takes a lot of different people to come together to make these things happen. But what happens outside the curb is a lot easier to do. So if you're considering improvements to a corridor, you think about what you can do outside of the curb. That's seating, shading, murals, sidewalk design, things like that create safe, amenable, inviting places. And then merchandise as well. We've got some great logos and some great images. We think it would be a great recommendation to start getting that out there. Social cohesion, co-locating, gathering places, these gathering places that we're talking about with local businesses and other things that are happening along the corridor to build mutual opportunity. An example comes to mind that's on the LaSalle corridor right now is the new food truck park. That's not only a local business, but it's becoming a gathering place along the corridor. So that's just wonderful to see happening. But we'd like to see more of that. information clearinghouse in any economic development initiative, understanding and communicating the conditions are an essential part of realizing the potential, right? So knowing who owns what they're planning on doing with it, and how to go about helping them see those, realize those visions is essential. And utilizing that information to go out, recruit businesses, support people that are coming in with development activity, and actively working to make the corridor a busier, more active, more vibrant place. So let's talk a little bit about, as I mentioned, we broke down each of, the corridor into 3 different districts, and I want to talk a little bit about, I keep saying, I've said vibe for 2 years about this corridor, and I really think that's it. When I first started thinking about Lasalle, I think about, when it was the primary, road through Waco, right? People were passing by and maybe stopping, and there was lots of cool stuff. I'm certain there was a drive-through theater there, and certainly some diners and all that kind of stuff. It made me think about, kind of the good old days where I would jump in the back of my parents' station wagon and hit the road for a family road trip, right? And so that's sort of what got me excited about Lasalle. And then you think about, it is a primary auto-oriented transportation corridor. Well, that lends itself to this idea of, sort of diners, drive-ins and dives and road trips and, Steinbeck getting on the road and discovering America and American graffiti and all that kind of stuff, right? So starting at the Circle, I'm going on a little bit, but starting at the Circle, in the Circle District, we think there's a great opportunity to build on the existing momentum that's happening over there with Magnolia, the restaurant, some hotels coming up over there. We think that the Circle area is primarily, the primary opportunity is to orient as a destination area for locals and tourists. So what I mean by destination area for locals is something that you can't get anywhere else in Waco, right? And then tourists, we've already got tourists coming to the Circle area to go eat the delicious food at the Magnolia Cafe. Let's keep them there for a little while. So again, throwback feel, days of exploration and discovery, I kind of went through all of that. I think there's really something to be said that haven't seen a lot of places in the country do in really recapturing that sort of era of Americana. And so efforts to promote the Circle District should be focused on that nostalgia and family fun, unique and local retailers and cafes, multiple market vendors. There's one large tract of land that would fall into the Circle District that has an opportunity to really set the tone for the corridor. And then incorporating home improvement and design, sort of building on the Magnolia stuff is an interesting idea, particularly given that on that side of the corridor we have Circle Hardware, which is, I don't know if you guys ever frequent Circle Hardware, but it's a bit of an institution in Waco. It's been here for a long time. It's a place where you see young artists going to get materials and everyday people that are building things to go get materials, but it is very much a local hardware store in the greatest sense. Well, we talked to Larry Dagley, who's the owner of Circle Hardware, and he was also on the steering committee. And he said, well, y'all are looking for concepts. Why don't y'all take my building? I've had this idea for a long time to build on this momentum with Magnolia and maybe grow Circle Hardware into more of a, sort of a home design center and a home store in addition to a hardware store. So we had our team, actually RBD Architects, were our designers on this project, come up with this concept for Circle Home and Hardware, which we think is just wonderful as a way to build identity and brand and allow that business to expand if and when the time comes for them to do that. Central Lasalle, today Central Lasalle is full of small businesses, offices, and services. We think there's an opportunity for some mixed-use residential there as well. It really is a hub of small locally owned businesses. Many of them have been there for a very long time. And we think that that part of the corridor can thrive as a sort of revitalized neighborhood Main Street. We thought about Magnolia Avenue in Fort Worth as we were doing this. It's a little bit larger scale, but again, the vibe is what we're thinking about. uses in the middle district are going to build on that momentum. Small, locally owned, single-story commercial. It's not going to be very high density. Office services, retail businesses. There's a couple of larger tracts in there that could build some horizontal mixed use. That is single-story mixed use, commercial and residential. Pocket neighborhoods, if you will. Also think an interesting idea for that area is also thinking about some retro-style garden apartments buildings like Palm Court on Austin Avenue or Terrace Gardens on 4th Street, which have a really interesting place in my heart. I think they're pretty cool. And connect those with retail centers, right? Because you got people there. Working in conjunction, as I mentioned, social cohesion, in conjunction, these pocket neighborhoods with public gathering spaces are a really great opportunity. And in fact, one of the large tracts of land that could be available sometime down the road is right next to the food truck park. So thinking about that moving forward is interesting. For the concept that we thought about for this project was the Showtime Lounge on Lasalle Avenue. It's a really interesting building, the way that it's oriented. There are no plans to change it as far as I know right now. But it's an interesting building. It's kind of 45 degrees and sits kind of weird, but we thought it would be a fun project to take what many on the steering committee considered a negative for the corridor and turn it into something that's really vibrant and positive. So we came up with just this kind of generic retail center or restaurant. We didn't want to prescribe a specific use to it. But building on the angles of the building and the lot and things of that nature, we thought it would be cool to just show that a little bit and get people talking. The university district, obviously, Baylor is a big player in that part of the district in terms of land ownership, and we think they'll continue to be. We think that the future of that district, of that part of the corridor, is going to continue to emphasize student-focused businesses, university-oriented activity. I think you'll see Baylor at some point grow out there themselves, not just with retail, but also possibly some facilities of their own long-term. The most important thing, as I mentioned at the top of this presentation, for that part of the corridor is understanding how people get around in that area. I think that'll be the highest intensity of new development activity and usage short-term. It'll probably long-term be the highest intensity of buildings along the corridor. And so understanding how to manage safety and access, particularly there, perhaps the intersection of University Parks and Lasalle up to some sort of crossing somewhere around 12th or 8th Street, somewhere in there, would be something to consider. The project that we came up with, concept project we came up for this part of the corridor is we're calling the Mercado. This is a gathering space concept on a vacant lot next door to the Hispanic Chamber building. We wanted to build something or design something that was easy, modular, low cost, and something that could create some quick energy and so on and so forth with this plan. This is something that we could see the corridor getting a quick win out of, and something that can grow as well. A place for people to gather, a place for public events, park and maybe some festivals and things of that nature. Implementation strategies for the corridor, for the LaSalle strategy are, well, first and foremost, there's got to be someone to implement this strategy. And I'll have Alfred go into some next steps and what they're doing in terms of these implementation strategies here in a minute. Somebody's got to own this thing, and somebody's got to wake up every day with their job being to work to grow the corridor and build economic development activity over there. Economic development incentive packages, all the other implementation strategies build on number one. So understanding what the incentives are in the community, understanding what isn't there that needs to be there, and working to develop partnerships to make sure that what's needed is to grow the corridor is in place. Guiding future development, working with city leaders, you guys and others, to ensure that work that's done in that neighborhood is consistent with the vision and that current land uses are compatible. Identifying and securing partnerships. I mentioned some large tracts of land that are available, that are unused, I should say, along the corridor. So finding a mechanism or partners to positively to control those parcels is an important step in identifying and moving forward with potential catalyst projects. And then marketing again. Image is everything, branding, getting the word out, developing social media presences, having monthly meetings about what's happening along the corridor and so on and so forth. That is the strategy. I'd like to pass it to Alfred to talk a little bit about next steps, and then Mark will talk a little bit about some of the things that are priorities that we need to think about as we work to implement this process.
Thanks, Chris. Thank y'all for having us today. So having just come back from Tulsa, one recognition we know in this intercity visit that it always takes philanthropic partners. So first of all, thank you for supporting the CMC strategies and Chris's great work. That money came through the chamber, and basically was just to pass through, and of course all your continued support. We see our role in this, just as in the strategy, is to lead this effort. Obviously, a person that wakes up every morning and is concerned with Lasalle is a necessity to make this happen at the most rapid pace. As it spells out in the strategic plan, that person will then become that for the entire city. So our hope is that we can focus our efforts on Lasalle, find that person, that right person, Spanish-speaking person, so they serve this entire community. These burgeoning Spanish-speaking businesses that are basically out there winning without a whole lot of support. We want to be that for them. The first effort we had was to submit a grant for additional funding for that person, and we were pleased to announce that a couple of weeks ago we received the notice that we were awarded the grant to the Cooper Foundation. So the strategy today is to develop the proper, make the broadest reach and find the best person for that role. The pool gets shallow when you want an expert in the arena, and then you want an expert that speaks Spanish, so we were going to make sure that we find that right person. So it may take a little more time than we would. All of us are always at a faster pace than it happens, but we're going to make sure we have the right person for that position. And it will be housed at the chamber. Part of the grant was also to assist with the technical side, so we will have the softwares and the customer relation management and all the tools that you need to make that happen, as well as outfitting the organization to have the technical capacity to serve this role, this role in our organization and this community broadly, with a person that can wake up every morning and get the vision of Lasalle that has been outlined. So we're super excited about it. So thanks for having us here today, and Mark.
Sure thing. They give me the hard part of this presentation just because I get to represent the steering committee and our concerns and our happiness and all the feedback that we want to provide today. First and foremost, you need to congratulate yourselves because we got this sucker. We got it approved. We went through city council. We went through neighborhood meetings, town halls, etc. So congratulate yourselves for that. As I mentioned, as the chair of the steering committee, I hear quite a bit of concerns, quite a bit of what's new, what's current, what can we do, where are we going, etc. And just a couple things I wanted to highlight today. Primarily, there's this new change in this flood zone, the effect that the way we're going to be affected with this flood. So just a little bit of concern there with regard to how we want to proceed and how we want to tackle that and how we want to inform our folks and ourselves, as well as if we're going to be the information clearinghouse, so we've got to know too. And it is a tough animal to bear, and it's tough, but we want to be there with you guys. We want to partner with you guys, and we're excited about this. But additionally, there are safety concerns, as Chris alluded to earlier, up and down the corridor, and welcoming this development. We want to be ready for that. But primarily, we want to communicate these things to you, and we want to have that partnership with you guys, and we want you to feel that way. So please know that we're here to answer any questions. I'm still going to stick around with regard to being on that steering committee, and our folks are vocal, and they love to express their concerns, and it's for the better of our city.
One final thing, I do want to make sure that we specifically thank Councilmember Bearfield and Councilmember Sabito, who's unfortunately not here today, for their leadership and their participation and their input and their wisdom in helping to develop this strategy. So thank you, Andrea and Hector. I'm certain he's listening or watching. And again, I guess there's one, I have a fatal flaw in my business model, which is I can't walk away from projects. So I will be around working with these guys as long as it takes to help realize that vision, just so that you guys know that your money's well spent. Any questions?
Questions or comments for the team?
I'll just say, yeah, Chris, great presentation. I like how you bring this, that presentation brings it all to life and incorporates the history of Lasalle at 77 and the circle and the university and all the high traffic area that it was and really and still is. Very cool part of the city, very iconic part of the city. And I like the direction we're going with the placemaking part of it and the branding or rebranding, if you will, and some of the schematics you showed. And there's definitely some cool restaurants and places on LaSalle that I definitely frequent. But because it is such a long stretch, I think it's also wise to bring that Circle Central University sort of logic to it as you go from place to place there. And then Alfred and Mark, so happy we have great sponsors and advocates in this project, and you guys, and Alfred Solano, you've done so much for the community. Mark Arias also, just I appreciate you getting behind this project, because it's not going to happen without all of us kind of pulling together and making sure it gets to where we want it to go. So I'm definitely behind getting this project going.
Thank you, gentlemen. It certainly has been a long time coming. In the time when I worked with City Center, we began, well, that's even before I got there, they were having the conversation about the LaSalle overlay and what the plan was for reacting that iconic ring neighborhood of downtowns, and so many things have happened, and the evolution of downtown. And I as a native Wacoan, I understand, as you mentioned, Mark, about some of the concerns and hesitation of the community, just because it's been such a long time coming, and you've had spaces that were so dormant so long. But I think the optimism that we serve is that, you're working now with a group of people who catch a vision. Visionaries have a really hard job because they're going to lob something up and people are like, okay, sure. How's that? Who's going to pay for that? And how's that going to happen? And how long is that going to take? And what does this mean to me? And so it is a hard job. However, I am very, very supportive of the layout of this plan, the separating it, because, that is an elephant that we do have to certainly eat piece by piece. And breaking it up into the specific districts, we've realized that districts work. And they do activate people to places. Placemaking has been a thing that was incredibly important to us for a very long time, and we see that it works. We've seen that it work in our community in various different neighborhoods and communities, and it will work here. What we have to do, and I plead that you all do with us, as you have been doing, is continue to keep them encouraged, which is not easy. But we all do have to kind of toe this line together, because there are going to be many pieces of this puzzle that will be easier to activate than the others. However, we will get it done. We move at the speed of trust. And so it is imperative that we've got to have our commercial owners in with us, our neighborhoods in with us, the visionaries and the policymakers in with it, because it's going to take all of us to get it done. But I'm really impressed at the way it looks, paying homage to the culture of the neighborhood and the community, keeping it current and active, but honoring the culture and relationships of that particular neighborhood. I think that speaks to who and what we are, because each of our neighborhoods, each of our ring neighborhoods and communities are very different, and that's good, because you want to be active, you want to engage in different places and feel and do different things and have different vibes. Come on, come on, Chris. And that will just add another jewel to our crown in what we are giving and the experiences that you can have in Waco. So, good job.
Thank you.
One thing I want to point out really quick is Councilmember Bearfield's district is along LaSalle. Sometimes the maps of the city of Waco get a bit confusing, and Councilmember Bearfield's district includes the Circle and LaSalle. So just
No. Not the
Circle,
circle.
right?
I go University and Center.
Okay, sorry.
Like, I don't go up that high. See, we split, there's a street, most of my districts, the way, when I have parts of South Waco, parts of North Waco, it's the major corridor that separates us. So don't ask me what direction that is on the map. I have the left side of LaSalle. And I love every minute of it. So thank you again for.
Yep, the maps are confusing. Thank you, gentlemen. This is excellent. As we're moving forward, again, as we were talking about the TIF zones earlier, the new TIF zones, this city is committed to being proactive and strategic to move our community and our economy forward, and this is exactly what that does. And I love the homage to the history, but the forward-facing momentum that we're seeing as a part of this, and can't wait to see it move forward full steam ahead. I think the community members that live along this corridor, the visitors to our city, and all residents of Waco are going to love being able to visit the businesses and the live workplace spaces that will be developed from the strategies that we're implementing here. This is a great team. I'm so thankful for the Syntex Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Chris, I'm so thankful for you and your work in this community. And I know that we're going to see a lot of cool momentum that comes from this as we move forward. So thank you so much for your work today.
Thank you.
All right. Mayor and Council, our final work session of the afternoon is work session 567, and it's a discussion of the Lead is Preventable and Home Rehabilitation Program. Renisha Hudnall, our Interim Director of Community Services, here to follow up on a council request for more details on the Lead is Preventable grants we've received from HUD, and I'll turn the mic over to her. Renisha?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. The city's Lead Preventable Grant Program began due to research that was conducted by staff in early 2017 regarding the prevalent existence of lead hazards in Waco and the preventable nature of the health defects caused by lead poisoning. Upon findings, staff began working on solutions which led the city's action to draft a lead ordinance and subsequently the first 2 lead grant awards. The city also reintroduced the rehab program after 10 years in 2018. Today, I will provide an overview on program performance, program data, and the department's outreach efforts and partnerships that we are currently implementing and have implemented to successfully execute both the LIP and home rehab program. The LIP grant provides assistance up to $20,000 and up to $5,000 from Healthy Homes to address lead hazards issues. This is a 5-year deferred forgivable loan, and no repayment is required if all obligations are met according to the agreement. Both owner-occupied homeowners and landlords qualify for assistance through the program. Repairs in the home may include items such as lead abatement, new interior and exterior paint and windows. Minimum qualifications for the lead grant include, but are not limited to, the home must be built prior to 1978, a child under the age of 6 lives or frequently visits the homeowner is at 80% or below AMI, and the home is located within the city of Waco. The city of Waco currently has over 27,888 homes that were built pre-1978. The homes are broken down per council district by the following: Council District 1, 5,075, Council District 2, 3,528, Council District 3, 3,335, Council District 4, 6,847, Council District 5, 4,778. In addition to the pre-1978 homes, staff has identified substandard properties. Staff is currently evaluating these properties and working close with Code Compliance Division to market the rehab program by disseminating information to these homeowners. The map identifies properties tagged within the last 5 years. Staff will continue to make efforts and focus in our outreach directly to these properties. The city originally received grants for $1.5 million in 2019 and $2.3 million in 2020 for a total of $3.8 million to assist 245 homes within 3.5 years. We have completed a total of 15 homes to date. Staff originally allocated $10,000 per home for lead abatement. However, the average cost of lead abatement is $18,968. To date, we have spent over $284,000 on lead abatement, which includes construction and liras, not including salaries, admin, equipment, etc. We currently have a balance of $2.9 million available for assistance. Although we have not met our goals, staff has submitted an extension requesting an additional 2 years to meet adjusted goals. We are hopeful that our extension will be granted. The Rehab Grant provides assistance up to $50,000 per home to address deficiencies. Previously, the program aided up to $25,000. Staff increased the assistance to better assist residents as we noticed more assistance was needed due to the increase in repairs and construction costs. The rehab program has a repayment structure in addition to a deferred forgivable loan. Eligible clients over the age of 62 will not have a loan payment. Those residents with incomes levels of 51% or more will have a partial repayment of the loan. For example, 51% to 60% will have a 30% repayment and 70% of the loan will be deferred up to 15 years depending on the amount of assistance provided. 61 to 70% will have a repayment of 40% and 60% of the loan will be deferred. Repairs in the home may include items such as a new roof, foundation repair, new plumbing, and ADA accessibility. The minimum qualifications for the rehab program include, but not limited to, the homeowner's income must be at or below 80% of the AMI. The home is located within the city of Waco, a max of 1 lien of which cannot be a reverse mortgage. To date, staff has completed a total of 25 home rehab projects. The average cost of the rehab is $39,584 per home. For program years 2019 through 2020, the city has dispersed approximately $989,000. The available funding for assistance is $367,000. Our projected goal for PY 18, 19, 20 is a total of 43 rehab units. Staff has met a little over 50% of that goal. The live and home rehab programs can be combined when the applicant meets all of the minimum requirements. Lead abatement must be performed on all pre-1978 homes using rehab dollars, even if the home does not qualify for the lead program. However, the combination of live and rehab funding allows staff to address more areas of the home, which will make the home that much more sustainable for the future. While it is staff's desire to serve every resident, we do have some residents that do not qualify for assistance. We have received a total of 115 applications, and of those applications, 68 did not qualify for assistance. The reason for disqualifications included no response, over the limit of the income, repairs exceeding the grant, or it was deemed infeasible. The applicant withdrew from the program, and they were delinquent in taxes, and their property was located within the 100-year floodplain. This map shows the homes that have been completed through the Live and Rehab program. For each council district, we have completed 7 homes in Council District 1, 3 homes completed in Council District 2, 2 homes in Council District 3, 12 homes in Council District 4, and 1 home in Council District 5. Staff has faced a few challenges in executing the Live and Rehab program. These challenges include the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, which increased the cost for labor and materials, and a lack of licensed lead abatement contractors. Staff currently uses lead abatement contractors located outside the city of Waco, and some of those cities are Austin, Lampasa, and Fort Worth, and Dallas. Staff has identified ways to efficiently meet these challenges head-on and have already begun working on these solutions, which include implementing safe practices, accepting bids up to 15% over the city's work estimate, offering training to build contractor capacity, and partnering with local chambers to promote the programs. Staff has...
Before you go on, talk to me a little bit more about that training.
The training?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So with our lead grant, we have the ability to provide funding assistance to take our local contractors through training.
Oh,
and so we have had conversations with the local chamber to potentially partner with them.
Awesome. Thank you.
Staff has developed a marketing plan to successfully execute the Live in Home Rehab program. This strategy will include partnerships with all local neighborhood associations. Staff is actively participating in presentations at neighborhood association meetings and a social media push through the municipal information, WCCC TV programming, and PSAs through local radio stations. These are communication strategies that have been implemented over the past year. The outreach strategy will focus on efforts on zip codes with the highest concentration of pre-1978 homes, which are Council District 1 and 4. Staff will continue to establish and build upon the partnerships that we have with local nonprofits and agencies. We will also continue to utilize code compliance officers when they are in the field and engaging the public to disseminate marketing materials. Staff will also continue to place yard signs in front of homes that are under construction, provide direct outreach by going door to door to hand out flyers. And just to give you a little bit of background on that, whenever we have a project that is under construction, staff does go to the neighbors and provide information about the program. And then also maintain a physical presence at community outreach events, which we've done a couple this past year, such as back to school events and then our local PD outreach. And also ensure all communication is available in English and Spanish. In addition to the marketing plan, the city will maintain partnerships with the Waco-McLennan County Public Health District. The Waco-McLennan County Public Health District is instrumental in providing data from the Department of State Health Services. The city has also partnered with EOAC to provide assistance through its weatherization program, as well as grassroots CDC for new roofs. These additional services help leverage the city's investment and stretch the federal funding. Staff also collaborates with cities that receive lead and rehab funds such as Irving, Houston, Jefferson Parish, and Kinder, Louisiana, to network and discuss challenges and best practices of the programs. The National Association for Advancement of Colored People, local church groups, and other nonprofits are also vital to the success of these programs. Here is an example of a resident that received rehab and lead funding. Areas of the rehab included full lead abatement, new interior and exterior paint, new windows, a new roof, and also stairs from the back door to eliminate a 4-step drop. The rehab on this home included full abatement, a new roof, new windows, new interior and exterior paint, foundation repair, and siding repair. This home was a referral from the city's Code Compliance Division. And I'll take any questions.
This home zero started out, Ranisha, thank you so much for the presentation. Great presentation. It's really a refreshing story you've got to tell, because I know that we went from really feeling good about getting this grant and receiving the grant, but more importantly, how you've deployed these the grant into the projects in those last couple of slides are amazing. And I like how you have taken the effort to combine the LIT program and the rehab program to really kind of rifle shot more than just trying to fix the lead, but also just kind of come to a holistic improvement package for the homes. And again, can you flip it back to that slide? I mean, that's amazing work that we're able to do in the community with these two programs. Because in addition to that, we're building equity for these folks too, and I think that's really the end game in this. So I don't have a lot to say about it, but keep up the good work, and I appreciate the work you're doing on this.
Thank you for that.
Ganesh, this is really helpful, just all of the data that you presented here, realizing that almost a third of the houses in our whole city are in District 4 that are built prior to the regulations around lead abatement is really stark. Couple of questions for you. Have we considered partnering with some of the schools that are thinking of Brook Ave Elementary or Dean Highland, some of these schools that are definitely serving kids in this age range that might have families that live in the area, to identify who some of these folks are?
So actually, we've developed a more in-depth marketing plan, and we've identified schools, churches within those different districts and zip codes to partner with.
Have we also considered widening out that umbrella to include child care facilities?
Yes,
Okay.
they are included as well.
Excellent. And do you feel like you have the staffing needs in order to address just how massive this behemoth number of potential clients is?
I think we do. I think we have the appropriate staff in order to carry out our goals.
Okay. And the last question is, how can us collectively, but particularly Councilwoman Bearfield and I, support you in this, recognizing that so many of these homes are in our 2 districts?
I think just getting the word out and speaking to your constituents in your districts.
Thank you for all the great work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rainisha. You have clearly answered my key questions, because I'm always going to ask, how are we communicating this? And one of the things that I find most impactful is that, let alone that you've changed the scope of the project to include more, so that way we can do more with less, but that the efforts that have been made through the neighborhood associations, because our communication and partnerships are key, getting the word out with our churches, because those are trusted spaces, and going, as Councilmember Palmer mentioned, with the schools, I mean, because it's amazing what can go home in a Wednesday folder. So just a public notice is a happy place in a Wednesday folder. That I think that we need to, that picture right there, that needs to be a banner almost to express what a dramatic change can happen with an application, with a conversation with our departments, with you, on how we can make this city better. So I applaud the efforts that you and staff have undertaken. I'm curious that you mentioned that there was 2.9 left in LIP. Is that
yes.
Right? So we need to get some applications in there, but that's not including the administrative costs. Is this an application that we can or grant that we can reapply for, or no?
Yes, this is a competitive grant.
Okay.
So you do have to apply for this grant.
Okay, because I noticed that with the remodeling, we're considerably less.
Correct.
And so I think that if we want to keep with this efforts of the tandem, because we've got a great number that need to be addressed, we're going to have to get us some more money. Go ahead.
So with the rehab program, that's funded through the CDBG and Home program. So we receive that annually. We don't apply for that. And so we do have an additional $525,000 that will be allocated in this upcoming program year.
Good deal. Good deal. Also, you mentioned radios and PSAs and things. If as Councilmember Palmer mentioned, what can we do if we need to get on those morning shows also in the radio stations and speak to it directly? Because I mean, if I hear a PSA, I may not fully understand, but if I'm on Pastor Stimson's show, or if I'm on If You Only Knew What We Could Do, and we're talking about it, then people have an opportunity to call in and talk about it. Then I know that they would understand what this project or what this grant potentially could do. So I'm volunteering myself to create a space with you to have those conversations, so that we can share this with as many people as possible.
Thank you.
Quick addition, I wonder if, because these photos are so stark and tell such a compelling story, if we could consider throwing up some billboards in maybe some of these higher need districts that have a link, like a really easy link, not a large URL.
QR, man.
That show what is available, and or I'm also wondering if in some of the direct outreach to individual homes, are we sending like cards, or what does that direct outreach to some of these impacted zip codes look like?
So we haven't had the opportunity to do like direct mail, such as adding ourselves to like the newsletter that the utility utilizes. My apologies. But we have done the door-to-door. And so we are looking into adding our program to that mailing list.
We are changing the trash pickup days in District 4 right now, and we each got a little mail-in card that was separate, and I've talked to a handful of neighbors that was really helpful to have that not be a part of the utilities typical send out, but to just be an individual piece of mail that was English and Spanish.
I had one more thing, Mayor. Renisha, can you go back to the challenges page? I wanted to make sure that I fully digested that and could help, that our council can help in any of those. COVID-19, can't help there, let me see. Cost of labor materials. That third one is one I guess I had in my mind, and you'd already kind of spoken to it. But is there any way to bring a lead abatement contract? We got $3 million to spend, right? So, I mean, where are the nearest ones they're having to come from out of town, basically? Is that what you said?
Yes, that's correct.
I don't know if we just need to, that may be another message we need to get out there that, we can probably support somebody who does that work, or is it a license kind of a thing, or?
Yes, sir.
Maybe encourage that somehow with some of our existing, I guess, plumbers, right, or whoever might do that kind of waterworks. Okay, thanks. That's just one. It seems like we could advertise a little bit somehow and keep that work here in Waco.
Okay. I'll be sure to add that.
Thanks.
Along the lines of PSA as well, I'm reluctant to get back in the studio. I feel like we are very effective as a council in getting an effective message out there.
Some more of us than others.
Yeah, let's do it on this.
Renisha, thanks for this great presentation. It's really great to see the strategic use of federal dollars that preserve housing and also improve the lives of families in our city. So thank you for your work here. Housing is a priority of our city, and I think that what I get excited when I'm seeing this presentation, I'm thinking about the housing study outcomes that we're about to see, as well as the future conversations we're going to have on the spending of our ARP dollars. And housing has been something that has continued to come up for those dollars from the five of us. And so my expectation is that this is going to be a great tool in the toolkit that we'll be able to deploy to really move the needle, or whatever the metaphor is, go down the road to really improve the housing stock in our community. Preserve that. I think it's good for our tax base, it's good for families. And really having multiple tools in the toolkit is going to be important, and these are certainly two of those. I appreciated, I'm thankful for our code enforcement officers, and they are boots on the ground who are also out there seeing where the greatest need is as well. So I liked that there were some referrals from that department, who I think is also going to be critical to help us really achieve some of our housing goals for our community. I'm excited about this program. I'm really thankful for our city staff recruiting these grants that are so meaningful to members of our community, and look forward to continuing to see good work come from this. So thank you.
Thank you.
And Bradley, I believe that's the last work session item. So are there any requests for future agenda items? Hearing none, we will not have executive session today, so we will recess the meeting at 4:30 p.m. and we will reconvene business session at 6 p.m. Thanks, everybody.